All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share. I can remember how to do that. Okay, you should be seeing the inside cover page of the Barn by Mitzvah study guide. Is that what y'all see?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So the idea behind this basically is to it's multifaceted. The reason that we're doing this, I think, kind of first and foremost, is just to sort of, for those who have been, say, following our teaching for any length of time, a year or two or more, it's just kind of to sew everything up, button it all up, tie it all together, make a nice bundle out of the knowledge that you've gained already, and fill in maybe some of the gaps. And to give you a book that actually documents it all as a frame of reference, hopefully for the rest of your life. And so, Yeshua told us, being those who follow him, to go out into all the world and make Talmidim. Who remembers what a Talmid is?
Taught one.
A taught one is a
remember.
student. In particular, in biblical context, it's a student of the Torah.
Yeah.
The word Talmud actually comes from the same root word as Talmid, which is lamad, which means to study. So a student is a Talmid. To study, I study is lomed. So you get the idea. The verb turns into nouns and other verbs from that three-letter root. So that's kind of the idea, is to make Talmidim. And so this is what the congregation of Messiah is commissioned to do, and I think in a lot of ways is failing at. I think in a lot of ways we tend to purvey knowledge. The difficult part is to mold character into the image of Yeshua. And that's what I'm striving for in this, especially for the adults that I know are taking this for those reasons. There are probably going to be people who are taking it for multiple reasons. That one, as well as gearing up to teach one's children. I don't know if anyone on this Zoom right now is doing that, because most of us are a little senior. But you might have grandchildren that you want to influence. And so there is that purpose as well. And then I think it's also a bit of a preparatory course for the deep dive that we're going to do into each of the books after we finish this study. You can see here it says a study guide for children and youth, or even adults, that they may know Yahuwah and achieve success at Bar and Bat Mitzvah and in life in Messiah Yeshua. And so that's kind of the one-line sentence that is hopefully sort of encapsulates the goal that we're talking about. And so you're going to see that this book is divided up into 7 parashot. Each one is significant in size. They're all almost, I would say, relatively equal in size as far as the amount of content each section has. And so the first 4 are framed in a question: who is he? Who are we? What are works of tzedakah? Who remembers what tzedakah is?
Righteousness.
Righteousness. And then number 4 is what the chok. And who remembers what a chok is?
Statute?
It is a statute. It's similar to a command or a mitzvah or a directive, but slightly different And you'll see why, hopefully, when we get to that section. The 5 is madrich. Who remembers what madrich is?
I don't know.
So this is a concept, especially you guys at Mikdash Me'at, that I really want you to lock in. It's from the root word derech. Who knows what that is?
The way.
Yeah.
Way. So madrich is actually the name of. There is a madrich, which is a book. If you notice. Let me see if I can get the see if I can bring the I'm sorry, I'm having to admit people that were late. So give me just a second. I'm going to bring the outside cover of the book up to show you something about that. So I got to open it first, it looks like. So let me open that.
Daniel, I got a phone call that threw this whole thing haywire for a second. What did you say madrich was?
I haven't yet.
Okay. I didn't
So
miss
you're
it.
lucky.
Okay, good.
Comes from the root word derek, which means way.
That's correct.
Well, I made a joke and said Madrik is midway. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's that and so much more. Okay, sort of. Yeah. Okay, I'm almost there. Sorry, it's been a bit since I've monkeyed with Zoom, so.
No biggie.
All right, you see the cover now.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So every word up here has an equivalent in the English. Messianic Peshitta, Bar and Bat Mitzvah Study Guide. So which word is the one we're talking about?
The first one, Madrik.
Madrich. And so what do you think it means based on the English?
Guide.
Guide. Right. So a madrich is a guide for, in the traditional community, what we would call rabbis, what the Christian community would call ministers or pastors. But in the Jewish community, a madrich has all of the ceremonies of life cycle events, big life cycle events. It starts with, and I'm not going to go into detail about this because that's what the study is for, but it starts with Brit Milah and it ends with a funeral. And right in the middle, since she said midway, would be the wedding. Okay, so that chapter of, or that parasha of the study guide is about life cycle events and the customs that surround them. And so that is what a madrich does. So this is a study guide. This is a guide for studying what it takes to complete a bar or bat mitzvah. So I'm going to get back to my share. All right, you guys see it again?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So that's what a madrich is. So the difference is between what the chok and the madrich sections are. The chok section focuses on particular little individual customs, whereas the madrich section focuses on ceremonies, okay, which all have individual customs inside of them. So, and then the nevuot is, who remembers what that word means?
I'm thinking like Nevi'im, so it's probably prophecy.
It is prophecy, very good. And so, yes, it's a brief sort of summary of biblical prophecy. You got to remember this is primarily geared at 9 to 13-year-old children, but again, everyone needs to have a basic understanding of biblical prophecy. All right, the testimony of Yeshua is the nevuah, the spirit, the ruach nevuah, the spirit of prophecy. And so everybody who is a believer needs to understand what the Bible basically says prophetically, both in what is fulfilled and what is yet to be fulfilled. So we're going to go over that. And then the Tehillim and ceremony is obviously, it's the particular prayers that a bar or bat mitzvah candidate is expected to lead during a bar or bat mitzvah and the ceremony that goes along with that. So that's sort of the crowning achievement for a young student who is doing this. Now, how many of you at Mikdash Me'at have not done a bar or bat mitzvah?
I have not.
I have not.
No.
Okay, so how many of you intend to?
I would like to if there's an opportunity, Daniel.
Okay,
I'd love
so
to.
when is your birthday?
January 27th.
You better hurry if you want to be ready.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'd
Anybody
love to do
else?
it.
Say that again, Joe.
I said I would love to do it.
That's for the guys, right?
Yes.
When is your birthday?
April 7th.
Well, we might be starting this just about right about the right time for you.
Happy day.
Yeah. Anybody else?
It's just for the guys, right? Like the.
No, that's what bat means. Bar is for guys, bat means for
Okay.
girls. So what does bar mean?
Our son, right?
Son. What does bat mean?
Daughter.
Daughter.
Bingo. So yeah, there's male and female versions of it. They're very similar. The difference is some of the pronunciations of the personal pronouns are going to be different. Age requirements in Judaism for children is slightly different. If it's still that way, I'd have to check. It's been a long time since I studied it, but yeah. So it's male or female. So if Vonnie, if you're thinking about doing it, you are certainly a candidate to do it.
Okay.
I'm
in April too.
What's that?
I have till April too.
Okay, cool. So what might be the benefit of actually doing that?
To me, it's almost like how a lot of people would say that in the Christian world, right? How they say like the baptism is the sign or your open confession. I kind of see it as something similar. Would be like an open confession of that you've gone through the study and you're professing your faith.
Yes, it can be that. And so what it does when you stand up and confess your faith in front of a crowd, you have to work up sometimes the nerves to do it unless you're just a gregarious person who loves attention. Most people don't. And if you're doing it for the right reason, that is exactly what it is. It's a public confession of your emunah, your faith, your trust. And what it can do for the congregation is, I intend to walk with you, and the congregation says, we want you to walk with us. Okay, so that is kind of the purpose of it. But I do think that if one approaches it with the right heart, the right attitude, that it can be very instrumental in sort of firming up what you believe and the fact that you believe it. Because until you confess something, a lot of people just believed and never really confessed it, never really went out and said it. And, I am a follower of Yeshua. This is what I believe. Very few people have ever done that. We don't require it anymore. The closest we come to it in Baptist circles is, when the guy is baptizing you, I don't know if they still do it, but it used to be, that they would give you a little 2-minute interview, and do you confess that, that Jesus is your Lord and Savior, And and they have a little speech that they give, and all you got to do is say yes. Anybody testify to that?
Yes, and they
Yeah.
still do that.
Okay, so that's what that is supposed to be, but this is on a whole other level, because you're having to articulate what it is that you believe. And it gives the congregation an opportunity to say, yeah, we think this person walks with us. So for those of you who have already done it or don't intend to do it, but you're part of a congregation, obviously most people on here are Mikdash Me'at. One of the goals might be for you to be able to discern whether or not someone is really confessing this in truth or whether or not they're just spouting what's in the book. Do you think there's a difference?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so that's one of the goals. Okay. So that is basically a summary of what we are going to do. So you'll see throughout the book these little pages. If you have the book, how many do not have the book?
We have one book right now.
Okay, you can make do with that if you want to. I think you ordered another one. I think they are on their way. So we did put our next batch order in. So those of you who have ordered one and don't have it yet, it is on its way. If you live off, you're going to get it as soon as we get them in, which should be either by Sunday or Monday. We should have them, and we're going to turn around and mail them right away. So they should get to you by midweek next week. That's our hope. The publisher, or I should say the printer, is really good about turnaround time, and we'll be just as diligent about turnaround time. Once we get them, we will ship them. So you're going to notice throughout the book, usually, maybe not every time, but usually at the end of a chapter, you're going to have a notes page, and it may just come in handy. So you can put a sticky note at the top of those and mark where they are when you get your book, and turn over there and jot down notes as you want to. So that'll keep it in one location for the rest of your life. And so we're going to go through the introduction tonight and then maybe answer some questions. And I don't think we're going to start into the study at all. I think we're going to wait. So we may be done a little early tonight. But I did want to go ahead and get this going. And since we have it on the screen, I didn't think it was critical to have one in your hand in order to do tonight. But if you want one, you can certainly get it. Okay. So here's our first page. Look at the image there and tell me what you see.
The 10 Devarim.
The 10 Devarim, and I'm glad you said it that way. What's different about this image than what you see other portrayals of the 10 Devarim? The 10 Mitzvot, the 10 Commandments. How is it different than others?
Well, for one, it's written right to left Hebrew style.
Yep.
And
using Hebrew letters, right?
the Hebrew letters, obviously.
And the first one, it says, I am Yahuwah.
That's right. What is the first one usually on other lists?
Oh, yeah.
No other God before me.
Bingo.
That's right. They combine them. Mm-hmm.
They combine the two together. Yeah. And then they split the next one apart and make two out of it. And then you get to the Sabbath mitzvah. And so there are actually three main versions of the 10 Devarim out there. That's the Jewish version, the Catholic version, and the Protestant version. And then there's some renegade versions out there that are just, slightly different. So these are obviously the mitzvot that were, and for those who might be new or watching on video, a mitzvah is a command, mitzvot is plural. So these are the mitzvot that were important enough for God himself to write into stone with his own finger. And so that's the body of knowledge that we're trying to gain. Okay.
And he did it twice.
Huh?
And he did it twice. It's so important.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, after Moshe broke them, he did it again. Okay. So Baruch haba, welcome everybody. That's what that means. And this is just, again, the language is kind of geared for preteen kids. So that's good for old folks like us who have been out of school for a long time. It's not hard to understand. Okay, so someone wants you to succeed in this life and receive the benefit of the knowledge of the Son of Elohim for this life and the next. Your congregation wants you to know Yahuwah, your Elohim, and his Son and Messiah Yeshua, your Savior, and how to live a full life in him. A bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah is a big step in that process. And so here's the definition in the next paragraph of what bar and bat mitzvah means. Bar mitzvah. Why does that sound different? What's the Hebrew word for son?
Ben. Ben.
Ben. Why is it bar here then?
His son?
No idea.
Nobody remembers? So bar,
Oh, no. I don't know.
no,
No.
good attempt, but bar is basically the Aramaic word for son. So it still means son. So what's happening here, what this is showing you is that the concept of bar mitzvah is very, 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 very early in the Talmudic age. So you might want to take notes here. So the Talmud is, I'm going to turn my computer and hopefully this will work. Am I turning in the right direction? Yeah, y'all see the little rabbi on the shelf?
Let me see here.
Can you see that? Do I need to blow it up?
On the bench.
Small.
Yeah, blow it up if you can.
I'm going to blow it up. No. Now can you see it? A little better?
The picture?
Nope, nothing.
Well, you got to let me talk. Y'all got to shut up and let me become the focus. Joe, you're the focus right now. So I don't know how y'all are making noise. Mute yourselves. I'm not the focus yet, so I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get it there. But if you look at it, it's not important. I just wanted you to see that the Mishnah, what you're seeing, those books over there behind that little small rabbi and the shelves above him, are just one set of the Mishnah. And you could see that that's basically almost the size of a set of encyclopedias, right? That's the Mishnah alone. Now, mind you, it can be put into one book. It'd just be a big book, and I actually had that, but I don't have it anymore. But the Talmud, on the other hand, is the writings. So the Mishnah is from the 2nd century. So the 2nd century being starting at 0 is the 1st century. The year 100 is the beginning of the 2nd century. So mid to late 2nd century, early 3rd century is when the Mishnah began to be written down. Okay, and that's what you see on my shelf. I don't have Talmud. I have some books that are from the Talmudic age, and that's what I wanted to get at. But the Mishnah is from the 1st century, but it is the foundation. It's the beginning of written Jewish liturgy apart from the Bible. Does everybody know what that means?
So it's basically like the customs and almost like the Siddur has got the customs and orders of worship and things.
Sort of, yeah. Much deeper than that, but yes, you're heading in the right direction. Let me get the file back open.
It's kind of like their theological thought in there too, isn't it? Like what they think about things.
Yes, it's the right. Well, first of all, the Mishnah itself is the writing down of the oral tradition. So the Torah is the what of worshiping in first century Judaism, and the Mishnah is the how. Okay.
Okay.
I'm getting the book back up there. I got to get back to where we were. All right. So Jewish people would tell you that the Mishnah is actually the beginning of the Talmud, that it's part of the Talmud, but I disagree because the Mishnah is merely opinion. And it treats itself as such. So it's written in a question and answer format. And this statement is made about whatever the custom is they're talking about. Let's use the moon, for example. Because in the Messianic community, there's this notion that the new moon is the scientific new moon, which was not fully discovered, if you will, until the mid-1960s. When the atomic clock was developed, then they could pin down when the new moon was, that being a fully, perfectly black moon, perfectly hidden in center point behind, the earth and not exposed to the sun at all. And so there are Messianic people and some rabbinic people that are saying that the new moon is a dark moon. So the lunar cycle is 28.3 days to 29.1 days or something like that. And it's during that unknown amount of time that the moon is fully dark, okay? Perfectly dark, and then it starts turning its face more toward the sun and being exposed to the sun again, and that's where we get a new moon. So in the Mishnah, we learn that they actually spotted the crescent new moon. And in the observation of it, the way it's described is messengers went out by two, sometimes father and son. They would come back and they would go before a rabbi, and the rabbi would ask them about the moon. What did you see? And Rabbi Yehuda would ask them this way, and Rabbi so-and-so would ask them this way. But Rabbi Gamliel had pictures on his wall. And he would point to the pictures and say, did you see this or did you see this? So Rabbi Gamliel drew pictures on his wall of the crescent moon as it would be when it's new or when it was old. And he would ask his witnesses, what did you see? Who is Gamliel?
How do I word it? He was one of the Pharisees, wasn't he? Or one of the, I guess that's the only word I know to use. Mm-hmm. He's the one who taught Paul.
He is Paul's teacher.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right. He was Shaul's teacher. He was a Pharisee. He was very advanced. He was one of the leaders of the Pharisees, and so he is in the Mishnah. And so it's a question and answer. Rabbi so-and-so says this. The way it reads is, this is a statement. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? What does Rabbi Gamaliel say? What does Rabbi Shammai say? What does Rabbi Hillel say? And it gives all opinions, and no conclusion is drawn. Okay? So it leaves the Jewish community up to debate. And they've been debating for 2,000 years, and that's what the Talmud is. It's debate, and it's rabbinic opinions of one man written into their history. So a rabbi would come along who would be brilliant, and he would write a lot and have opinions about things, and they would fall in love with him. Oh, bam, he's inspired by God. Let's add him to the Talmud. And so it would fill up, a Talmudic library would fill up my office.
Mm-hmm.
So wait, so in the
2,000
Talmud,
years of encyclopedic Jewish thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get all of their error from. That's where you get all of their opinions about things and overbearing rulings and, That's what makes Jewish people miserable in a lot of ways.
So is it Jewish thought or the rabbi's thoughts?
Rabbinic thought, which is predominantly Jewish.
So that's the Talmud that's written in question answer form with no conclusions and all that kind of.
Yeah, and so that would have started in the late 3rd century, maybe early 4th century. There were 2 schools, there were 2 centers of rabbis. One was in Jerusalem and one was in Babylon. And so they didn't merge until very late in the game. So you have Bavli, which is Babylon, and Yerushalmi Talmud. All right, and so if you go digging around, that's what you're going to find. I don't want you going and digging around. You shouldn't go digging around until you master the Bible and the Mishnah and understand everything that you need to understand before you start dorking around in that stuff, because you will get led astray. Too many people do. That's why there's 1,000 opinions. That's why there's division in the Messianic community. So,
Are those called? Those
say
are
again?
those are the midrash writings or something like they always say. The midrash said, check the midrash or something like that. Are those that included the Talmud, Mishnah, and all that?
Yeah, so they divide it further than what I'm dividing it. They call it Gemara. The first part of it is Gemara. And then, so yeah, they have their divisions inside of it. None of that is important to you guys for this context. But yes, a midrash means, so what do we call what I do on Shabbat?
Drash.
A drash. So midrash means to dig out, to search. Doresh is the root word, and it means to search. And so some people call their study Beit Midrash, a house of seeking, a house of looking for, a house of studying. If you seek, you will find, right? And so, yeah, so a midrash is a seeking out of some kind of information. So you would do that from a Talmudic rabbi if you're a Jewish person. And so, yeah, some people, you'll see in Jewish customs, somebody will teach an in-home Torah study. They'll call it a midrash on Shabbat. They'll do a midrash on Shabbat. Okay, that's what we're calling drash, the short form of it. So that's a lot of information that doesn't seem to be germane to what we're talking about. But what I want you to see here is the reason I brought it up is because the Mishnah is written originally in Hebrew, whereas the Talmud, a lot of it is written in Aramaic. But within the Mishnah, there are Hebrew words like bar. It is in there. Like tikkun olam, I think. Let me think. No, there's better examples of that, but I don't want to get bogged down in it. But there are a smattering of Aramaic words in the Mishnah itself, and the custom for bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah. Bat is Hebrew, and I believe it's also Aramaic. I think it's the same in both languages. Bar, however, is Aramaic, and so what you're seeing is that Aramaic was already influencing the theology of the day and the customs of the day, and so that's the word for tefillin. Who knows what that is? If you were to say it with better pronunciation, tefillin would be what you would be saying. Who knows what that is?
Where?
No.
Oh.
The tefillin, that's the box and the leather wrapper on the arm.
Yes, that's the box that you see Jewish men wearing, and the leather thing that they wind around their arm. They call them tefillin. That's an Aramaic word because that custom did not occur, it did not develop until about the late 2nd century, early 3rd century, right about the same time as the Mishnah was written down. That was the last group of people to inhabit Qumran that actually invented and debated and sort of began the custom of wearing those things, because there's no evidence anywhere in all of history before the late 2nd century that any Jews actually ever did that. And so in the Mishnah, tefillin are mentioned, and the way that they are mentioned is that, yes, this is compulsory, and anyone who doesn't follow the directives of the scribe is disobeying God himself. And so they use that. This is the first time that they wrote down a compunction to wrest authority from God and say, we are the voice of God. And they did that in order to try to impose the tefillin on the whole Jewish community, because they weren't all doing it. It was brand new. As a matter of fact, when you go to Qumran and dig them up, you find multiple versions of them. There was, in that century, which is the late 2nd century, there's all this debate within that community, 1900 years ago, 1800 years ago, as to what was in the box and what was in the, what was on the arm and what they did and how they davened and all that kind of stuff. It was brand new stuff. And so what I'm telling you this for is that is the beginning of the Talmudic age. At the tail end of the Mishnaic period, which is the 2nd century, the mid to late, I should have said, it's probably late 2nd century, early 3rd century is the beginning of the Talmudic age. Okay? And so that's why you see bar mitzvah there. So a bar mitzvah is a ceremony that takes place ideally on or near the 12th or 13th birthday of the Talmid or Talmidah. We've already gone over that. A student of Messiah, a student of Torah. Okay, and for us, to be a student of the Torah is to be a student of Messiah, because he alone is our Torah teacher. And then we already kind of talked about this. For many who come into the faith a little later, the age can be up to 15 or 16. That's for children who are brand new. We still want to give them an opportunity to do it. It's the final step in the process of preparation. It is not a commanded ceremony, but it is very ancient. I believe there's a possibility of a hint at a bar mitzvah in the Brit Chadashah. Does anyone know what I'm thinking of?
Yes, when Yeshua got up to read.
That's right. When Yeshua, no, not when he got up to read. He was an adult.
Oh, when he was when he got lost and he told him that he would be about his father's business, when he was when there was questioning him and the answers and the questions.
Exactly. He was 12 years old. Okay. And so traditionally, if I'm remembering right, that's why you're seeing 12th or 13th birthday. So traditionally, it's boys at 12 and girls at 13, or vice versa. But I want to say it's boys 12. Okay. Now, mind you, the ambiguity in the number might be because in antiquity, they counted a person 13 years old after 12 years on earth, because they counted their from conception. They counted their age from their conception. They considered life to begin at conception. Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
So it's not a commanded ceremony, but I think it is biblical, because the scriptures tell us, train up a child in the way that he should go. Who can find that particular verse for me? It's in the Proverbs.
Yes.
Bueller.
Let me see here.
Twenty-two 6.
Proverbs 22:6.
Yes.
Let's see if I can get this open. Are y'all seeing my Hebrew Tanakh now? Or
We are.
Yes, sir.
excellent. Can't type. So you see that page, right?
Yep.
Look at the way this reads in the Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
Train up a child according to his derech, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it.
Yeah, that's a,
I'm going to show you that that's what it says. Chanoch means to train. Lana'ar, for a child, according to the mouth. Remember, we talked about that on Shabbat. Dar ko. Derech is right there,
mm-hmm.
and that makes it possessive, his derech. And of course, you don't give a child his own reign over his own life. You want him to follow Messiah, right?
Right.
So that's why it is translated this way. Train up a child according to his derech, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Okay? So that's what we're doing here, and that's why I believe this is a very biblical thing to do. And of course, we talked about it for the adult, it's the same thing. But for you guys, you know, many people, very few of us have had the opportunity or the luxury and the privilege of growing up in a home that follows the Torah to have been taught that way, right?
Right.
Okay. So it's a decision on your part. That's why I said when we started our introduction, I didn't say, all right, you all have to do one, and if you don't, 40 lashes with a wet noodle. You know, this is something you have to want to do. Okay? It's something that your child, if you're speaking of a child, that your child needs to want to do. Now, it was compulsory in the Jewish community, and it still is in a lot of Jewish homes, even though they might not be very observant at all, but by golly, you're going to do your bar mitzvah. It's a 4,000-year-old tradition. You have to do it. In the Jewish mind, for a young man, it's a comeuppance. It's a transition from childhood into adulthood, and they begin to give them other responsibilities, and take away childish liberties and give them responsibilities. And so that might be something that someone in the Messianic community is seeking from Elohim, is give me responsibility in your kingdom, right? I'm tired of flailing around out here and just playing around. I want to actually go to work. So that's a good thing to think about in regard to adults taking this class. You are choosing to show the congregation that you are a part of the Messianic community of Jews and Gentiles who believe in the Son of God. You are choosing to become a bar mitzvah. What is a bar mitzvah?
Son of the commandment.
A son of the commandment. Or a bat mitzvah. What is that?
Daughter of the commandment.
In the congregation and for the rest of your life. It is a big decision. And this is how you're going to approach your children about it, if you have any that you're dealing with or helping someone deal with. And the congregation participates in it. So this is a community thing. The congregation is asking you to show that you are one of Messiah's Talmidim, or his Torah students. There are certain small tasks that the congregation asks of you, and this guide will help you know what they are and how to do them. You will learn about the faith of your parents and the congregation that all embrace the deep faith of the Jewish people and all who have joined the Jews in faith in Messiah Yeshua. And so we should probably talk about that a little bit. So, I'm Jewish. My wife is Jewish. I knew about it a little earlier on in my life. We had family records of it. My wife found out by DNA. There is one lingering hint of Jewishness in my family. There's a picture of my mom in front of, it must have been her grandfather's talit when she was a little baby. Melanie's family has no record of it, no memory of it, but it's very strong in their DNA. But nonetheless, we're part of the Jewish community. We at Mikdash Me'at have one Jewish person who grew up, actually, two Jewish people who grew up in the faith. And the rest of the congregation, by and large, did not and have not been very long in the Messianic community. And so Nonetheless, that is a picture, and you're going to see this later on in the study. You're going to see that that is actually a beautiful picture of the Israel of God. Galatians 6:9 is the Israel of God, which is Jewish people and Gentiles who have joined Israel in faith. That is the Messianic community. It's not apart from Jews. It's not apart from Gentiles. There is not a Jewish part of the Messianic community and a Gentile part of the Messianic community. It's one community. We're Jews and Gentiles, but we are one people, one family in Elohim. And so one thing that I want you to make a note of and make it big is one, echad.
Yeah.
No division whatsoever. And that's our goal. So,
Me.
you know, I, for one, am sick to death of division in the faith, but I'm not going to compromise and, you know, let down the standard in order to embrace everybody and certify everybody and make them comfortable in their sin. You know, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to follow rabbis for the sake of unity if they are veering from the scriptures themselves. And so it's a big charge in front of us. If we at Mikdash Me'at want to be sort of a leading congregation in trying to unify the body of Messiah, do we think that we're going to sweep the world and everybody's going to turn and come our way? I don't think that for a second, because narrow is the way and small is the gate. And I expect that. It's kind of sad that it has to be that way, but it is that way. But I think it can make the walk sweeter when we find those people and we all work together and are echad and are trying to grow a unified body worldwide. So, so there is no distinction between Jews and Gentiles in regard to faith. We're saved the same way. The level of righteousness expected is the same. The level of righteousness given by Messiah is exactly the same. There's no difference. And unfortunately, that's not true in a lot of circles. And so if you're of the mind that there are differences, you might need to bow out because there are no differences. We don't treat each other differently but based on race or genealogy for any reason. You will learn who is our God, Yahweh Elohim. You will learn who you are in his eyes. And that, I think, is where a lot of people are messed up. Actually, on the first one, there's a lot of people, you know, if you go back up here, the tweaking of the mitzvot to ignore the fact that the first command is that he is Yahweh, there are a lot of people who then don't misunderstand this. Just because I see most of the names here, I kind of know who's here, and I'm pretty sure that we're all good on that, but we are going to review it. You will learn what Messiah Yeshua did for you. Most of you can probably articulate that, but there are details that you need to lock in. You will learn what Yahweh Yeshua HaMashiach expects from you. And that is going to be different because of the narrow road that we are choosing, which is Messiah's road, and not the rabbinic road, and not the Christian road. We're choosing a very narrow road of what Yeshua expects from us. And it's not very much, but it's a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay. You will learn what the whole of Scripture teaches on how to be a man or woman in the community of faith. And all of us need to try to focus on that because we've all failed at that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so we need to focus on that and try to really get a mindset of achieving that. So we're using this study guide that you see on the screen and some of you have in your hands. And if you missed it, you're going to get it in your hands pretty soon. Go back and watch the first part of the video if you missed that. This guide will prepare you for your ceremony and help you grow in your walk with the Messiah. It will not help you inside unless you pray. There are people who have sat through this and did not change. Nothing is going to change a person except a heart that is actually looking to be changed and willing to be humbled and seeking to follow Elohim in truth and to be conformed to him and to be subject to the knife of circumcision, which most people are not willing to do. Seek Yahweh while he may be found, call to him while he is near. That's a scripture that we're quoting there. Strive to conduct yourself perfectly before Elohim as a soldier without reproach and one who declares straightforwardly, Devar ha'emet. And that quote is from Timotheus Bet, 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. What is Devar ha'emet?
Word of
The
truth.
word of truth.
The word of truth. You could say it this way, the true word, okay, which is the scriptures. This right here makes it worthy to note something very unique about this guide, and that is the scriptures that we're citing. Okay, most of you know what that is, but is there anyone who does not know what version of scriptures we use or where to get it? I don't think I see anyone strange on here that does not know that, but there might be. For future people who might watch this by video, right here is the Hebrew and English version of what is known as Hadavar, the word, and a subtitle would be Devar Yeva, Hadavar, the word of Yeva, and it is a Bible. It is a Tanakh and Brit Hadashah scriptures. You might say Old Testament and New Testament, although we don't like those terms. They're not horrible, they're just not the best. And so this is the version of scriptures that are going to be used and cited throughout the book, the study guide. And so you will see at the beginning of the Davar, Hadavar, is a table of contents, and it has the Hebrew name of the book over on the right, because Hebrew is right to left. There's Bereshit, here's Bereshit, and there's the translation of it, Genesis. So if we look down here, under the Brit Hadashah, we have the book that we are looking at. Timotheus Bet, 2 Timothy, is what that is. And this tells you what page it's on in this volume. Okay, so the Tanakh is the Torah, the prophets, the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim, and that's the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, and all of that together is the Old Testament. The Brit Hadashah is what most people call the New Testament. These are in a different order. The Tanakh, the Old Testament, is in a different order as well. And what is that? We put the prophets that belong in the prophets back in the prophets, primarily Daniel and Ezra and Nehemiah. They were prophets. So we put them back in the section of prophets. Okay, I believe they were moved in the Talmudic age because they very clearly point to Yeshua. And there's just mountains of evidence of that. Maybe not mountains, but at least hills of evidence of that. So they're back where they belong. And the rest of it is in traditional Jewish order. So they're going to be slightly different than in a standard King James or other Protestant Bible. Okay, the Ketuvim are slightly different. They follow in the order of the Jewish tradition, minus the ones that we moved back to the prophetic section. The Brit Hadashah is the Gospels. That's pretty standard. And then Acts kind of stands by itself. And then we have the Jewish letters. These are letters that were written to the Jewish believers. And most people don't realize that all of these were. Okay, so they help you set your mind, your context when you're reading. You have to read the Bible in biblical context. And so this is going to help you do that. So you have to recognize that your audience in these books is Jewish people who believed in Yeshua. Okay, and then the letters of Shaul. Who was Shaul the shlichah to? To whom was he sent?
Gentiles.
He was sent to the Gentiles. Okay, he was sent to primarily Aramaic-speaking people. That's why it says Aramaean letters of Paul. Okay, not Aramaean in the sense of the Aramaic language, but in all likelihood, he wrote them in Aramaic. Okay, and so these are his letters to the Gentiles. And we put Ivrim in there because they are still the Aramaean letters of Shaul, of Paul. And we believe that he wrote this. There's some people that don't, but some scholars that do believe that Shaul wrote that. So that's where this lives. And then the last, of course, is the Hebrew. But that's why you're seeing Timotheus here. Now, the cool thing is in the body of the text, I think we managed to get all of them changed to have both the English and the transliterated name in there. So you won't have to go look at it if you don't know what it is. Okay? So don't panic. All right. So if you said at the beginning of this study tonight, of this review tonight, that you want to do a bar or bat mitzvah, then here are your objectives. This is a checklist that you need to maybe make a sticky note of and put it on your desk or wherever you study and keep it in mind. Complete this workbook in its entirety and learn the course objectives. We're going to attempt to do that together. So you're going to have help in doing that. Some of you have already started. How many of you have already started digging in the book, the study guide?
Bye.
Yeah, man.
Bye.
Okay, cool. I'm glad to hear that. Second thing is memorize the 10 Devarim. And I should have put in here, you should know that you need to do that in Hebrew. All
I
right,
memorize them in Hebrew.
in Hebrew.
Okay.
And attempt to sing them if you can. That's how it's traditionally done, is they're done in song. Okay? You can do a YouTube search and probably find them and just mimic that, be a parrot, but make sure you learn the meaning. It'd be good to know every definition of every Hebrew word in the 10 Devarim. Or at least, you know, get them locked in at some point and then struggle to remember them later if you're old.
Yeah, really.
Thank you, Daniel.
You're most welcome. I didn't name names.
Notice that
Okay, memorize the congregational prayers in this book. Most of you have probably already done that just because you hear them week after week. It's not a big set, so look in the back of and the book we're talking about is this guidebook. Okay, so the ones that you need to memorize if you can are those. Learn what your parasha is and prepare to read a portion of it aloud at your ceremony in Hebrew if you think you can. And I'm going to tell you, you can, even if it's just a few words. But the more you strive to learn to do in Hebrew, the more pleased with yourself that you're going to be. So who does not know what their parsha is?
Me.
Who does not know what a parsha is? Anyone? Sounds like everybody knows what a parsha is. So if you do not know what your portion, your parsha is, then I have found that the best way to find it is to go to heedcal.com. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to do mine so that you know how to do it. Let me share my screen again so you can see it. Must be this one right here. All right, do you see the heed cow?
Yep.
All right, so you're going to
Does it say
go
heed?
to,
Was it say heat cow?
Heb, H-E-B, Hebrew calendar, Hebcal.
Heat cow, okay.
I go to the blue button. Did everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
On the top right of the home page, I just go there. This date converter I have found doesn't work well sometimes. So I go here, and what I do is go to the settings, and I'm going to go to the Gregorian year. That's our calendar. I was born in 1965, and I was born in Zion, Illinois. Chicago is close enough, I'll use that. And there's a reason I'm doing that. I'll leave everything else the same. I want to make sure that portions are selected. I want Israel holiday schedule. Okay, so I think I've got everything. So I'm going to go to 1965. And I'm going to go to December because I was born in December. And so in 1965, I was born on the 7th. That's my birthday. So the upcoming Sabbath is the 11th. And the portion for that week was Parashat Vayishlach. Vayishlach is in Genesis chapter 32. And he sent. It's about Jacob. And so that's my portion. I have verified this myself against the lunar calendar as well. So what I did is I went to a page like this. It might not have been this one. And I did December. I would actually have to probably do November. I'm going to do a different one because this one goes by day, and I don't want to go by day. So this moon calc page is probably the one you want, either, or maybe that, no, you probably want that starting. This is the best one for our purposes, but for this purpose, you probably want star date moon phases. It's probably the best one. All right, and so I went to December 1965. Why am I doing this instead of just taking what I saw on HeatCal? Anybody know?
You need 2 witnesses or more.
Well, that's one reason, but what might the other be?
Because then the rabbis, they kind of like reconfigured the calendar.
Yes. So they're building their Shabbat off of a calculated calendar. But if you notice, this past year, we've been in lockstep with that calendar. So what I'm doing is just verifying the day that I was born on is that day in that month, okay? And so if I go to November to see the Chodesh, then I can start counting the day. So the Chodesh is right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I go back to December and keep counting. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I was born on the 13th day because days start at night. So my birthday is the 13th of the 9th month. Okay, I just happen to know that. It's the month of Kislev, if I'm not mistaken. Same month as Hanukkah is in. I'm pretty sure that's Kislev, right, Betsy? Or do you remember? She's still there. Okay. So anyway, but I know that the month is adding up right with the previous cycle. Are you with me? So that's why I did it. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't a whole month off from the Chodesh, and it's kind of hard to do. It's not entirely necessary, but I wanted to just make sure. So I did that. You may not have to do that. You might just want to live with what our Jewish people do. It's never very far off, okay? So you might just be satisfied with this date. I haven't changed in all the years I've been doing it, and this portion means a lot to me. So that's how you find your portion, okay? So you want to do that, and it has a name. You can click on here and find out what the portions are, but you can also go to our material for that, okay? In the back of the Hadavar, you'll see them back there, okay?
Awesome.
That's your homework, Joe. Tell us your portion next week.
Okay. Learn what your parsha is. Prepare to read a portion of it aloud at your ceremony in Hebrew if you think you can. And next is perform 3 mitzvot or acts of tzedakah, 1 at home, 1 in the community, and 1 in the congregation. That is entirely up to you. If you choose to do that, you don't have to let us know that you're doing it. but I think it would be good for you to do that. The reason we do this with children is it teaches them to think about what being good is and doing righteousness is and doing acts of kindness is, and it begins to teach us about community, both in the world and in the congregation itself and in the family. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is talk about your ceremony. Your bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah will go like this. You'll lead the congregation in the Torah service on the day of your bar or bat mitzvah, including singing the blessings that are sung during the Torah ceremony from the Siddur. That doesn't mean that you're leading the whole Siddur service. That means that once the Messiah prayer is said, then you take over. And you're the person leading the ceremony. Actually, when you are blessed to read the Torah, so you basically become the Oleh or Olah for the day. If you're a female, you will be the Olah. If you're a male, you'll be the Oleh, the person who ascends to the Bima. So you're going to take over the Siddur service at the Torah ceremony. Okay? And that includes singing the blessings that are sung during that ceremony. Most of you know those because you do them every week, but you'll be surprised how you forget the melody when you're standing there in front of a crowd with that deer in the headlights look.
Especially with Hebrew.
And if you are doing it with us, I'll be standing beside you in all likelihood, and I can start you off. You don't have the microphone, but I can start you off so you're not lost. That sometimes helps. So don't panic if you're worried about that. You'll read aloud from the Torah and the Haftarah just like we do every week. You'll just be the Oleh, doing what whoever that is every week does. And the Brit Hadashah from your portion. If you're a guy, you want a special female, a wife, a mother, a sister, a friend, to read the Brit Hadashah portion for you, right? Vice versa, if you're a girl, then you're going to read only the Brit Hadashah portion during the Torah service. You're going to have a special person, male, to read the Torah and the Haftarah, and then you're going to read your special part of your Torah portion during your ceremony, right before your drosh. Are you with me?
Yep.
Okay. This is done around the world in synagogues, every week. And that your portion is the one that was done when you were born. All right. You don't need your parents for finding it out because you are parents. So that's for children.
Okay, so Daniel.
Yeah.
So the whole thing, the Torah, the Haftarah portion, and the Brit Hadashah portions are from your parsha, from
Yes.
not that weekly one, but your particular. Okay, gotcha.
Oh, that weekly one. Because ideally we want you to do it on the anniversary of your portion.
Right. Okay, yeah.
So my portion is Vayishlach. That's coming up. And so if I had never done a bar mitzvah before, then when Vayishlach comes up, which I think this year it's like at the end of November, because it moves around. My birthday is different. My Hebrew birthday is not always on my Greek Roman birthday. Are you with me?
Right, yeah. I gotcha.
So it doesn't come around at the same time every year. So your portion could be as much as a month away from when you were actually born on the Roman calendar, but it's the anniversary on the Hebrew, the biblical calendar. Okay, and so ideally that's when you can do it. If you just want to do your bar mitzvah at another time, that's fine, but you will do your portion, yes. But ideally the two should merge. Does that make sense, Joe?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. You will recite the 10 Devarim in Hebrew. You can do it. You will sing the Shema. Everybody here I know can do that. You'll tell the congregation who the Messiah is. And that sounds trite, but I want you to really think about that as we go through this book. I don't want traditional, trite, parroted, I've heard it all my life answers. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's always the same, but each of us is going to describe him a little bit differently, and I would prefer that it be in our own words. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Personally, for me, as a leader of a congregation, I want to make sure that you understand who he is. Again, looking at the roll call here today, I'm very confident in that. But still, put a lot of thought into that. Tell us your story, in whom you believe, why you believe, about your time of study. So it'd be good to keep a little diary of what you're learning, or keep your notes, and then at the end assess that, how meaningful this particular study, this journey is for you. We're going to do it a little more quickly than children will, just because we're not children. But we're going to try to take our time as well. What you've learned, and a funny anecdote, and the reason I put that in there is for children, because that tends to relax the child. If you can tell a little bit of a joke, try to make it lighthearted, keep it anecdotal and funny, just to get it going, and then you relax, and then you can feel better about what you're doing. That works for adults too. All right, you may invite whomever you want at your ceremony, friends, family, teachers, etc. It's your celebration. You get a chance to honor Yahweh by dressing up to honor Elohim, and dressing up in the sense of putting on even better clothes than we normally wear to the synagogue, but obviously modest apparel, but nice, honoring Elohim. Lead your community in prayer to him. And so the second thing that I want you to make a really good note of is, instead of just saying the prayers, pray the meaning of the prayers in your heart before the congregation. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And just for Mikdash Me'at, I want us to begin to practice that more and more and more, where we're beseeching God for the words that we're saying, and we're not just saying words that we've said a lot. Hopefully you understand.
Yes. I mean,
Where'd you go?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
When you are ready, before or after your bar or bat mitzvah, I recommend before, maybe the day before. You may immerse at the first opportunity. And obviously you can coordinate that. To immerse, you need witnesses. It needs to be done in the proper way, the biblical way, which most believing communities do not do it the biblical right way. That doesn't negate their immersion, because they do it by emunah. It's just better to have a better understanding, and you're going to get that even better in doing this study. But I'm just saying, if you remember from our study that we did a few months ago on the pillars, the 6 basic tenets of the faith, immersion was one of them, right?
Yep.
And one of the purposes of that, or one of the conclusions about that, is there are multiple reasons to immerse, and it's not just a one-time thing. This is one of those things, because I'm assuming if you're an adult and you're doing this, it's because you want to step up into the next level of your faith. And, you know, Shaul tells us that we proceed from one glory to another. All right. And so that's really what you're pursuing in doing this. Okay. So coordinate that, your immersion with people, and we can talk offline about that at a later date. Obviously, we're not in a rush. This is going to take about at least 3 months to do, if not more, but we're going to see how far we get. Okay. There will be a dinner and a fellowship. This is for a congregational setting. There's typically a dinner and a fellowship in the honor of a child. We can do that as well for adults. Just some fellowship afterward to celebrate what just happened. And here are some tips for success. Follow the guide and make sure you meet all the requirements. We've gone over those, and they get repeated through the guide. Read all the information over and over. So we're going to do this on Thursday nights, but what I want you doing, your assignment for next week is to read, and I'll show you what that is. You're going to have a reading assignment, hopefully each week. And then we're going to go over it together when we meet for the Zoom on Thursday night. So read it over and over. Don't just, I hope that everybody that's doing this is taking it seriously, and you're really trying to learn and deepen your trust, okay? Make yourself, this is key, especially for those of you who are older. If children do this, they take off like rockets in regard to Hebrew, okay? But you can too. Make yourself your own little Hebrew dictionary of all the terms in this book, okay? You can do it from the glossary in the back of Hadavar, because, you know, get very, very familiar with that glossary if you can, or just find the ones in this book and find maybe one of the white pages in the book and put it there and write the definition and make yourself know those things. And so you never have to ask, what is that? Or you're never sitting there hearing me speak and you go, what is that? You already know. And I know some of you are already well on the way to doing that because you've answered several of the questions tonight. So I did that when I was learning Hebrew. I kept a book with me that had my vocabulary in it, and I would go rewrite them, and I would make sentences out of them, and I would put my readings in there. I'd rewrite the readings that I had to read and write them in that notebook, and I carry that notebook. I don't know if my wife remembers that, but I carry that notebook back and forth to work with me every day, and that's how I learned Hebrew, okay? You're not trying to necessarily learn the language, but you need that good foundational subset of vocabulary so that you're not lost when we're studying. So that's a really good pointer. Pray the prayers daily. Most of you have the Siddur. If you do not have our Siddur, let me know, and we will get it to you in a digital format. We're going to print those. That's our next printing project, which will be maybe a month down the road. Give thanks for the chance to confess your faith. This was written for the children because it's kind of a daunting task for them, but it can be for adults as well. But see it as an opportunity to declare Yeshua to somebody, even if don't you think you can get better at doing it before strangers if you can do it in front of your congregation?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to help you do that. See yourself as a Cohen in his kingdom. And of course, that means priest. Be sincere and joyful in your approach. Have a good outlook toward this big day. We're talking about your Bar Mitzvah day. Read all the scriptures referenced herein. I would like for everybody to, when there is a reference in the text that is not cited in the text, to actually go read that reference. I find that most people don't do that. Did someone speak? Okay. I find that most people don't do that. Like when people visit the website, there's citations of scriptures that are used to make statements, and they don't go read those citations. Go read them. Go find out where did the basis for this thought come from. Okay, so I encourage you to do that. Every time there's a reference, if that verse is not spelled out, and even if it is, go check the context of it and see if we're right about the context. That's a very good exercise to do. This we already talked about. I showed it to you. So you can go back and watch the video and review that if you like. Learn to use a good concordance. I will try to have a list of those ready. I have a very good set of those. That Strong's, by the way, is not a good concordance. It's the most common one, and it's not horrible. It's just not the best. And it was done by a Methodist minister in the 1800s.
Oh, well, good gravy.
Good gravy. I hadn't heard that one in a while.
So yeah, what does a Methodist guy know about Jewish Hebrew? He was probably a decent Hebrew scholar, but there's better ones out there. So I'll try to have that ready next week for you.
Awesome.
Oh,
Ask
awesome. Thank
questions,
you.
Even if you are scared, obviously you're adults, you shouldn't be scared, but people have told me that they're scared to ask me questions because I guess I look mean. Get over it. I'm not mean. I'm very frank. I might embarrass you, but sometimes it's for your own good.
Wow.
Love
It helps you remember things.
That is true.
True that.
So next week, I want you to scan all of this, 1 through 9, but I want you to at least have read at a deeper level 1 through 5. You see what I'm looking at?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Page 11. Who is Elohim? What is his name? What is his son's name? Is he a person? What did he do for us by sending Yeshua? So we're going to try to cover all of that next week.
Okay.
And so I want you to read it this week. You'll find exercises in there. Do those exercises. If you can't get it, then those are the questions you're going to ask next week. Okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments? Because we're going to wrap up tonight. This is as far as I wanted to get tonight. Tracy.
I just wanted to say with the concordance, the Strong's concordance, one major thing in there, we know that the word church is not in the Bible, but when you look up the word, which they have in Greek, well, in Greek it's kurios, but they changed it from ecclesia to kurios, which is two different words, but the one definition that they give is church. And
That's
it's just, that's not what it means at
Yeah.
all.
And the same is true of I got to think a minute.
Cross.
Cross is the one I'm trying to think of. I'm trying to think of the Greek word for, the Greek word for cross is tau, T-A-U, and that is not what is in the Greek text. I'm just struggling to remember. Staros, I believe, is the Greek word that is used there. And staros in Greek actually means stake, S-T-A-K-E, and not cross. The Greek word for cross is tau. So yeah, that's true of many, many words in the Strong's Concordance. So yeah, it's not the best. You have to, it can be deceiving. Another thing about it is, about all concordances is, some of them tend only to give you one definition, and Hebrew words at their roots don't have definitions, they have ideas. And the definition is established as much by conjugation and context as it is by the root, okay, if not more so. The Blue Letter Bible is decent. It's an online Bible that uses the Strong's, and it can be useful, but it's just not the best.
Lexicon.
Next week, they're right down there, I'll tell you. I can't think of the name. So I have Brenner's Hebrew Lexicon. I have, I can't remember the others, but I have two more that are really, really good that I'm going to tell you about.
Is that BRD?
B-R-E-N-N-E-R. Brown Driver Briggs is the other one. And then there's a third one, which is probably my favorite because it has all the Aramaic in it as well. Any other thoughts or questions? Is it useful?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Daniel.
All righty. Well, sorry I was late to get the notice out.
Daniel, just a second. Can I ask a question?
I've been offering you to ask questions for about 5 minutes.
Okay, fine. Do we fill in the blanks ourselves, or do we wait until we're done in study?
Fill it out in pencil. And when we do the study, if you want to ink it in, ink it in.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Yes, are we doing 1 through 9 or just 1 through 5?
We're just doing 1 through 5. What my instruction is to just gloss over 1 through 9, but do a deeper dive into 1 through 5.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
No problem. Anything else?
No, not here.
All righty, Lehitro. We will see y'all next week, eh?
Thanks. Thank you, Daniel. See ya.
Hey.
So